Welcome to Move the Needle. My name is Marlana Semenza, and I'm a photographer and visual strategist, and I create images that frame the way you're seen and understood by your clients and your audience. Please join me in welcoming today's guest. Elyse, please give us your name and tell us what you do.
Hey, Marlana, thank you so much for having me on. My name is Elyse Archer, and it's interesting to be doing this interview at this time because what I do is shifting a bit. So you're actually the first interview that I am doing where I'm kind of in the middle of this brand transition. So high level, I currently do this and I will still be doing this. I'm a founding team member of a company called Brand Builders Group. We are a personal brand strategy firm, and we work with everyone from some of the top entrepreneurs and personal brands in the world to a lot of individuals who are just starting out. Maybe they've got a side hustle, they're building their brand. They want to make, we call them mission-driven messengers. They have a big impact they want to make in the world. And it's not just about money for them. They also really feel called to do something that helps a lot of other people. So I currently do that. In addition, I am in the middle of a brand launch and something that you're helping me with photography, getting back into the sales space. I've got a long background in sales coaching, spent about 5 years in that space years ago, had an exit from a company I was a part of, and had a 2-year non-compete where I couldn't really touch sales, and that was okay. I went off and did some other stuff, but my heart has always really been in helping people with their sales. And specifically, the group that I'm going to be helping as I roll out this new brand is women in sales. So either women entrepreneurs or women sales professionals who want to earn 6 figures or more, but they want to do it in a way that feels really natural and good to them. I think a lot of times, this has been my own experience, it may have been yours as well, as women business owners or salespeople. I think a lot of what we are taught when it comes to sales and generating revenue is that we have to basically cut off so much of who we are, whether it's our intuition, our empathy, our connection with other people, and we have to basically become a man in a woman's body. And I have tried it that way. It worked, but I was stressed out. I broke out in hives. I was not happy. And I've also tried it the other way of really just sinking into more of who I am and honoring that when I bring all of me to the table, not only do I have more powerful connections and I actually make more money, it's more enjoyable. I'm able to be more successful with more ease. And so that was a really long answer to your question of what I do.
So then what would be your one tip for us to move the needle on our business or brand?
Yeah, it's interesting that you ask this right now, just because I have had a lot of time to really think about what would that answer be now with some perspective versus maybe 5 or 10 years ago when I was still pushing and hustling and trying to really feeling like I had to be someone other than who I was to be successful. And for me right now, and this is probably going to sound counterintuitive, but I think the one thing that's been most useful and that I would recommend to somebody else is, if you haven't already, take some time to get really still and go inward. And if you find that you're in your business or in your brand and it feels really hard, like it feels like a slog, it feels like a grind, it feels like things aren't working, maybe you sense that you're out of alignment somewhere, and you may not have necessarily spent a lot of time thinking about it because you're just feeling like you've got to work 20 hours a day to try to hit your income goals or your targets. It's the most unnatural thing in the world to take a step back and get still, but it is the number one thing that's going to help you, because what happens when you take a step away, there have been multiple times in my career where something was working well for me and then suddenly it stopped. It's like the faucet turned off. And I remember looking around and saying, what's happening? Like, I'm used to selling a lot. I'm used to having clients roll in. I'm used to things being easy. And then all of a sudden the flow kind of stops. And even though I'm doing the same things I used to be doing, it feels really hard now. What I found is that that's usually an invitation for you to pivot in some way, whether it's to step up your brand, whether it's to move in a new direction, whether it's to up level what you're doing, or maybe to pause for a while. And those times can feel scary, especially if you're someone like me who's naturally type A, a high producer. You put a lot of your value in your production and what you're creating in your revenue. But I found that it doesn't work to just keep pushing when that's happening. And taking a step back and being willing to release your attachment to whatever your current brand is, whatever your current business model is, to say, what am I actually being called to bring forth into the world? And usually it's more in alignment with who you are whether you've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching and that's just not really working as well anymore. And maybe you're being called to bring some sort of a group model or some sort of a product into the world, or, even when it was getting time for me to leave the old world of sales coaching, what I was doing before I kind of took a break and I'm coming back now, I noticed that the calls just weren't working and flowing the way they had been before. And I was actually being invited to take a step back and kind of reimagine my brand, and came and joined this team at Brand Builders Group, and have launched a really successful multiple 7-figure company doing that. And now it's time for another pivot. So don't be afraid of the pivots, and don't be afraid when things seem like they're no longer working the way they used to. And I think for a lot of us this year too, at the time at which we're filming this, things are being brought to the surface that maybe we hadn't wanted to look at, we hadn't wanted to examine. For some people, it's in their personal relationships. For a lot of people, it's in their businesses, their business model. What may have worked for you for years is no longer working. And the more resistant you are to that, the harder it's going to get. And the sooner that you can say, you know what, I'm going to release all the attachment to what I thought this was going to be and my ego about how I thought I had to show up. And the sooner you can just get there. And for me, it just looks like stillness. It looks like meditation. It looks like long walks in the woods, whatever you've got to do to get to a place where you can really just access kind of that inner guidance and say, what am I being called to bring into the world right now? And if there were no boundaries or limitations, what would excite me? What would thrill me to the core? What would make me so excited to sit down and work every day? That's going to work for you. As soon as you release that attachment to what you've been doing and say, okay, I'm available. Let me start building whatever I'm being called to build, or make these pivots or shifts. Things start working easily again for you. I think ease sometimes gets misconstrued. There's still going to be work, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be enjoyable. It's going to feel more like flow. And that is when you know you're in your genius. So I've had that experience multiple times. I had it again earlier this year, and I'm now learning to recognize, oh, this is just an invitation to step up. And so for anybody who's feeling that right now, I would say, get quiet, take a weekend to yourself, cancel your meetings for an afternoon and go for a walk, and just get introspective and ask and be available for what shows up, because it's always going to be better than what it's been. So that is my advice.
Love that. Thank you so much for that, Elyse. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. This has been fun.